What if the biggest upgrade to your brain wasn't a supplement from a health store shelf, but a tiny chain of amino acids your body already recognizes, designed to cross directly into your brain and flip switches that caffeine and nootropics simply can't reach? Most people have never heard of these. Doctors rarely talk about them. But the research, it's been quietly building for decades. Today we're going deep on the best peptides for cognition and focus, and I promise some of what you're about to hear will genuinely surprise you. Before we get into the list, let's make sure we're on the same page. Peptides are short chains of amino acids. Think of them as smaller, more targeted versions of proteins. What makes cognitive peptides special is that many of them are blood-brain barrier permeable, meaning they can pass through the protective wall surrounding your brain. Most supplements can't do that. That's the first reason peptides are fundamentally different from anything in the nootropic space. Nootropic, a substance that enhances mental performance. Now, the peptides we're covering today aren't experimental fiction. They have clinical and preclinical data behind them. Let's get into it. The first peptide is Cmax, and this one has arguably the strongest evidence base of anything we'll cover today. Cmax is a synthetic analog of ACTH, a hormone naturally produced in your pituitary gland. Analog, a compound with a similar structure to another but with some differences. It was developed at the Russian Academy of Sciences, and here's what makes it stand out. Rather than just spiking a neurotransmitter temporarily, Cmax upregulates BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor, which acts like a fertilizer for your neurons. Higher BDNF strengthens existing neural pathways and enhances neuroplasticity, your brain's ability to adapt and rewire itself. Multiple animal studies confirm this mechanism, and human stroke recovery trials have shown measurable BDNF increases in treated patients. What most people don't know is that Cmax has been formally approved in Russia since the 1990s for stroke recovery and cognitive impairment, making it one of the few peptides on this list with actual clinical history. Studies document simultaneous dopaminergic and serotonergic activity, meaning sharper focus and improved mood from a single compound. That dual mechanism is genuinely rare. It's administered as a nasal spray, and that's not a workaround. Intranasal delivery is actually the most studied and effective route for this particular peptide. Next is Celanc, the anti-anxiety cognitive peptide almost nobody outside research circles is talking about. Celanc is a heptapeptide, 7 amino acids, derived from a naturally occurring immune-regulating molecule called tuftin. It was developed by the Institute of Molecular Genetics of the Russian Academy of Sciences, and its pharmacological profile is genuinely unusual. It modulates the GABAergic system, the brain's primary calm-down network, but without the sedation dependency or cognitive blunting that benzodiazepine medications are notorious for. GABAergic, relating to the neurotransmitter GABA, which inhibits nerve activity. Published research, including a peer-reviewed study in Frontiers in Neuroscience, showed that Celanc influences the expression of genes involved in memory and learning. specifically proteins that regulate ion-dependent processes in the hippocampus. Separately, research confirmed it inhibits enzymes that break down enkephalins, your brain's naturally occurring stress-dampening peptides, effectively extending their active life. The real-world implication for people whose cognitive performance is being crushed by chronic anxiety or stress, Selank may be the most precisely targeted solution that currently exists in the research literature. Now we get into something that sounds extraordinary, and the data is striking, though it comes with important context. Dihexa is an oligopeptide developed by researchers at Washington State University, originally in pursuit of an Alzheimer's treatment. In laboratory cell culture studies, it was shown to be 10 million times more potent than BDNF at forming new synaptic connections. Now that number needs unpacking because it's real, but it's specific. That figure comes from in vitro assays, meaning experiments on living nerve cells in a dish, where dihexa was active at picomolar concentrations while BDNF needed far higher amounts to produce the same effect. It does not mean your brain gets 10 million times smarter. What it means is that the compound is extraordinarily efficient at triggering synaptogenesis, the biological process of forming new synapses between neurons. Picomolar, an extremely tiny unit of concentration, 1/1,000,000th of a mole. It works through the HGF/c-MET signaling pathway, which drives not just synapse formation but also neuronal survival and structural plasticity. Animal models showed reversal of Alzheimer's-related cognitive deficits alongside measurable increases in hippocampal synaptic density. The critical caveat: 0 completed human clinical trials exist for dihexa. This is a compound still in early-stage research territory. The mechanism is fascinating and the preclinical data is compelling, but the human picture is still being written. You've almost certainly heard of BPC-157 for healing injuries. What's massively underreported is its neurological dimension. BPC-157. Body protection compound 157 is a pentadecapeptide derived from a protein sequence found in human gastric juice. The injury repair reputation is well earned, but animal studies have consistently shown something less discussed. BPC-157 exerts significant effects on the dopaminergic and serotonergic systems in the brain. Research demonstrates it can counteract dysfunction in the dopamine system caused by chronic stress, neurotoxins, and certain medications, essentially helping restore the brain's motivation and reward circuitry toward baseline. What makes it even more interesting is the gut-brain axis connection. The gut-brain axis is the two-way communication highway between your gastrointestinal system and your central nervous system. Since roughly 90% of the body's serotonin is produced in the gut, a peptide that simultaneously repairs gut lining and supports serotonergic tone in the brain is influencing your cognitive chemistry from two directions at once. Like dihexa, human clinical data here is limited, but the mechanistic logic is sound, and it remains one of the more broadly researched peptides overall. Before we get to the long game, there's one more peptide that deserves its own spotlight, and it may be the most clinically tested compound on this entire list. It's cerebrolysin. Cerebrolysin is not a single peptide. It's actually a mixture of small peptides and amino acids extracted from pig brain tissue and carefully purified in a lab. Think of it as a concentrated package of signals that your brain already knows how to read and use. Here's what makes it stand out from almost everything else we've covered. Cerebrolysin contains fragments that act like neurotrophic factors. Neurotrophic factors, proteins that support the growth, survival, and maintenance of brain cells, including BDNF and NGF, which stands for nerve growth factor. These are the brain's own built-in repair and maintenance molecules. Cerebrolysin delivers them in pieces small enough to actually cross the blood-brain barrier and get to work. The research backing here is substantial, and that word means something specific. Dozens of randomized controlled trials, which are the gold standard of medical testing, have been conducted on cerebrolysin in patients dealing with Alzheimer's disease, stroke recovery, and traumatic brain injury. A major review in the Cochrane database, one of the most respected sources in medical science, found consistent evidence of cognitive improvement in Alzheimer's patients who received it. That level of clinical history puts it in rare company on this list. What it does inside the brain is multi-layered. It reduces neuroinflammation, which is basically swelling and damage happening at the cellular level in your brain. It helps existing neurons survive under stress, and it promotes the growth of new neural connections. It's doing several jobs at once, protecting what's already there, repairing what's been damaged, and helping build what's new. The honest note: cerebrolysin is delivered by injection, which puts it outside the reach of casual personal use. It's prescribed and used clinically in over 40 countries, particularly across Europe and Asia. It hasn't cleared regulatory approval in the United States. That doesn't erase its research record, but it does mean that access and medical oversight vary significantly depending on where you are in the world. If CMAX is the focused cognitive upgrade and Celanc is the calm and clear solution, cerebrolysin is the closest thing on this list to a full brain repair kit, and it has the clinical data to back that up. But all of those peptides are working in the present tense, fixing, restoring, optimizing what's happening in your brain right now. What if the more important battle isn't happening today? What if it's happening quietly at the level of your DNA year after year, long before you ever notice the effects? That's the question the final peptide is built to answer. Epitalon, a tetrapeptide with just 4 amino acids, developed at the St. Petersburg Institute of Bioregulation and Gerontology, with over 40 years of research behind it, primarily from Vladimir Kavinson's group. Its main mechanism involves stimulating the pineal gland to restore melatonin production, which declines significantly with age, and activating telomerase, the enzyme responsible for rebuilding the protective caps at the ends of your DNA called telomeres. Telomerase, an enzyme that adds DNA sequence to telomeres, slowing the cellular aging process. Here's why that matters for cognition specifically. Telomere shortening is consistently associated with cognitive decline, slower processing speed, and increased risk of neurodegenerative disease. Human and primate studies from Cavinson's research group show epitolon restores nighttime melatonin peaks and improves circadian rhythm regulation in aging individuals. The honest caveat: most of the published research comes from a single Russian institution, and independent multi-center trials are still limited. That doesn't disqualify the findings, but it's a reason to follow this one as the research matures rather than treating it as settled science. What it offers right now is a uniquely long-game approach targeting the cellular, aging mechanisms that silently erode cognitive function over years. So to recap, Cmax for BDNF and real clinical history, Selank for stress-free, anxiety-clear focus, Dehexa for synaptogenesis on a mechanistic level unlike anything else, BPC-157 for restoring your dopamine and gut-brain circuitry, cerebrolysine for multi-layered brain repair, the most clinically tested compound on this list, and epitolon for the long game, telomere health and circadian restoration. These are real compounds with serious research behind them. Not all of that research is at the same stage, and I respect you enough to tell you that rather than hyping everything equally. Here's what I want to leave you with. Your brain is not a static organ. It is constantly rebuilding, rewiring, and responding to what you give it. The fact that molecules this targeted even exist, ones that cross the blood-brain barrier, speak the language of your neurons, and work with your biology rather than overriding it, that alone is worth sitting with. We are living in an era where the science of the mind is moving faster than most people realize, and the people who understand it earliest will think, learn, and adapt in ways that compound quietly, year over year. That's the real story here, not a shortcut, a deeper understanding of what your brain is actually capable of. See you there.